This is a lecture from Open Tuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
This chapter is using information systems. In the previous one, we talked about using computers to produce information for us. In this chapter, we're talking more about what information is needed and the sorts of software or systems that are available. I've just realised I can't spell information. There's an M. Oops. There we go. Anyway, the first bit of this is very much, or should be, revision from paper MA, or if you did a while ago, paper F2 as it was called. But the information needs for decision making. Because different people in the organisation are making different types of decisions. And the different types of decisions need different information. And standardly, we talk about 3 levels of decision making. The top level, strategic decisions. These are long-term decisions. I've written there 5 to 10 years, but that's not a rule. But it's long-term decisions, such as, for example, shall we launch a new product? Or shall we open a new office? The long-term decisions, we're not deciding on producing new products every week. They're very much one-off decisions and major decisions, and it's going to have a long-term effect. You don't start a new product and stop the next day, sort of thing. That's what we mean by strategic long-term decisions. They tend to be made by top management. And of course, to make the decision, they need information to help them make the decision. And so, what sort of information are they going to need? Well, things like launching a new product. A great deal of the information we need is going to be external to the company. Things like, are there any other companies making the same product? Is there any competition? If there is, what sort of prices are these other companies charging? A lot of the information we'll need will be external. What's the demand likely to be for the new product? Maybe we have to have research done. But it's very much top management, long-term decisions, external information. The next level down we call tactical decision making. That having decided that we're going to launch a new product, we then start needing to make more detailed decisions, detailed budgets. Exactly what are the costs involved, what are our targets, and so on. So tactical, it tends to be more medium-term decisions. These things like preparing budgets for next year or the next few years in order to implement the long-term strategic decision. So we've decided we're going to launch the new product, we know what the investment will be, we've estimated overall the returns. Now let's do detailed planning, detailed decisions about how many staff do we need to employ over the next few years, where are we going to get the materials from, and so on. And for that sort of decision, or those sorts of decisions, we will need both external and internal information. Oh dear, my spelling. External and internal. So, internal information, we know how much we pay our workforce, for instance. That's internal. Things like selling prices, we will need to look at what competitors are charging. That's external. And so strategic, that's the long-term decision. Having made that decision, let's start planning in more detail, tactical. And having done those plans, having got our budgets and so on for next year, I don't know what's happened to this. Anyway, then we can move on to what we call the operational, which is more the day-to-day running of the business, the day-to-day decision making. Oh dear, sorry about this. What is going on? Here we go. The day-to-day things like how many workers needed this week. Day-to-day running, day-to-day control. It tends to be junior management involved. And the information they need is going to be virtually entirely internal. So there we are. I said that's really revision from paper MA, but the 3 levels, standard levels of decision making: long term, medium term, day-to-day running of the business. However, as I've said several times, in order to help us make decisions, we do need information. And the next thing is to look at the types of information systems or information software that are available to provide us with the information. And you've got a list there, very much terminology, but still. First of all, what we call transaction processing. System or software, the 2 words are interchangeable. Transaction processing, TPS. This is at the root of all businesses. It's just the software to process the day-by-day transactions. For instance, whenever we buy goods, we need to enter the invoice amount. We need the double entry, the accounting software. Well, the software that does the double entry. Or another example, maybe we've got software that calculates our wages. We type in the hours worked and it works out the wages software. So with lots of software to process the actual transactions, the data's all there. But of course, that in itself isn't giving us information. And so we then have what we call management information systems, or software, the MIS. And what this does, it takes the data that's recorded by transaction processing, but it then produces reports from that data. So, for example, wages. Obviously, all the wages are recorded in the transaction processing, so they're all on the computers. But maybe we need reports every month as to what the total wages are in each department. wages per department. Now, different companies need different reports, obviously. We need to plan in advance what reports we need. But if the total wages per department are something that's important to us, then the MIS will have been designed such that every month out comes this report. Again, it gets the data from transaction processing, but it's just summarising it, giving us this report. Or another one maybe, total sales per continent. Maybe I'm not really interested each month in how much in each country, but I am interested in how much we're exporting to each continent. And again, there's no set reports. We decide what reports we need. But the MIS will then regularly, perhaps monthly, produce these reports. Now that's fine as far as the sort of what you might call the day-to-day running of the business is concerned. However, when we look at the strategic decision making, we've already said they're very much one-off long-term decisions. That if I'm thinking of opening a factory in China, I'd be interested perhaps in knowing what our exports to China are at the moment. And maybe that's not one of our regular reports. It's not coming out of the MIS. Because normally we just need to know the breakdown to each continent. But because of this one-off decision I'm making, I want to know details about sales to China. Well, that's where the next one comes in. Executive information software, executive information software or systems, or EIS. And this is rather neat. It's software primarily for top management, but it enables them to sit at their computer, access all the data, and produce whatever reports they need. The ability to produce what you might call one-off reports. So just to try and make it clear what I'm talking about, I've said for whatever reason, we regularly need to know what our exports are to each continent. And so the MIS is producing that report for us each month. I'm thinking of opening in China, and so I want to know what we currently export to China. And that's not one of my regular reports, because we don't normally need it. And we're not going to have the whole software redesigned. Well, executive information software, on my computer, very easily, I can call up any report I want. I'm not a programmer. Top management aren't programmers. But what they can perhaps do is, first of all, they can call up sales by continent. And it'll link into all the data, and it'll produce, normally, rather than have a longer schedule of numbers, to make it really easy to use, it comes up perhaps with a pie chart. And it has, Asia is perhaps about a quarter of our sales, Europe, North America. We don't sell anywhere else. Well, that's fine, but of course I want to know how much we're selling currently to China. And China is in Asia. And so, and you may have seen this, but we can what we call drill down. And what I mean by that is, you see, I've already said I'm not a programmer, so I don't have to type in great long detailed instructions to the computer. Perhaps I double click on Asia and it sort of expands. I get a new pie chart analysing our Asia sales. So that bit is China, this bit is Japan, India, and so on. I mean, I'm filling more. If I want numbers, I can get it to show me the numbers. But one beautiful thing about this software is it's very what we call graphical. Again, rather than just get lists and lists of numbers, it comes up as charts, diagrams. If I want the numbers, I can get them. But that's, if you like, a second step. And maybe, okay, I can see what proportion of China. Maybe I'd like to know our exports to China. How have they been growing over the past few years? So perhaps I double click on China. Oh, and perhaps it comes up with a bar chart. Showing me what the sales are each year. 2000, 2001, 2002, and so on. And so in a very easy way, I can end up getting any report I need. Because again, the MIS is only coming out with standard reports. For this sort of decision, I'm likely to want special reports, depending on the decision I'm making. Okay, that's EIS. The next one, enterprise resource planning. ERPS. I never like this name because it always sounds to me as though it's doing something it isn't. All this is, it's, okay, we've got lots of different departments. We've our accounts department, they have accounting software, the double entry. Human resources, perhaps they calculate wages, and so they've got wages software. Our inventory control department, they need to keep check on the levels of inventory, and so they've perhaps got their own software. But given we're all networked together, all this data can be linked and make things a lot more efficient. So for instance, if we buy materials, well, clearly our accounts department will have to enter it. So the accounts programs, software, they'll need to enter what we bought and how much it cost. But of course, the inventory control department, it'll need entering in their software. But it's completely daft if you've got two different departments entering this, very much the same details. It's needed in the inventory software. But since we're networked, why not integrate them all? And so instead of having to enter the details twice, we enter it in accounts and it's automatically recorded in inventory. It needs a lot of careful planning and programming in the first place. And that's all that's happening. The idea that all our departments are linked together. The information, the data is all shared. And we're not entering the same figures twice. You know, the accounts need information about wages. Well, wages department, human resources, they've got it all there. They enter it, the relevant figures for accounts, and go through the network. It's all interlinked. Which I hope you agree makes sense. You know, in the very early days, each department would have its own separate software. These days, it's one huge program containing all the little bits. Finally, on this list, customer relationship management. Dear, I don't know why I'm writing it all down because my spelling is dreadful today. Oh, CRM. This almost defines itself. But you see, over the years, recently, there's been a lot more focus on customers, keeping the customers happy, keeping contact with the customers. Because the more satisfied or happy the customer is, clearly, it'll benefit our sales. And so customer relationship management software records all details relating to each customer. We have a screen for the customer, and on that screen there'll be details of all the past sales. There'll be details of things like all email contact. You know, when did you last email them? It might give you alerts, so it's time to email the customer again and check they were happy with their last order. Are they going to order again? Details of all telephone contacts. Everything relating to the customer. Because more and more, I mean, I keep getting phone calls. So, do you want to advertise here? And you advertised last month, will you advertise next month? Well, I don't believe the person at the other end is sitting there thinking about me all day. It's because they've got these screens for each customer, and it's prompting them. It's a month since you last spoke. Time to ring them again. Check they're happy. Check they want to advertise again. Check they want to buy again, and so on. All right, finally, over the page, you'll see something that's become very much a buzzword recently: big data. And again, it's customer orientated. But thanks to computers and the speed and storage capacity, companies are capable of storing enormous amounts of data about their customers. In the text there, I've used Amazon as an example. I think most of you know what Amazon is, online shopping. But in this lecture, I'll give a different example at a supermarket. And I don't know, I think it's the same the world over, that more and more supermarkets give loyalty cards. And one reason, of course, is that if you have this loyalty card, you might get discounts, you might get credited with a % of what you've spent to try and persuade you to keep going back. But it actually does a lot more than that. That's not the real reason supermarkets issue them. The point is that if you're using your loyalty card every time you shop, they know how much you're spending. You know, they know whether you're a big customer or a small customer. They know what you buy. And that's quite important to them, Have you never had emails from a supermarket, if you're a loyalty, giving you special offers? Well, they know what I buy. If they know I buy a bottle of whiskey every week, I might get an email telling me whiskey's cheap this week. That sort of thing. They can also, they know if you've got any pets. How do they know if you've got pets? Because of what you bought. If you're regularly buying cat food, they don't have to be too clever to know that you've got a cat. They know if you've got children, particularly babies, obviously. Because if you're buying baby food, it's pretty certain that you have a baby. And this helps them in so many ways. They can direct advertising at you. A special offer on baby food. If you've got a child, that's relevant. If you've not got a child, why waste time emailing people without children about baby food? They can target their advertising. They can decide how to position things in the supermarket. If they know, everybody who buys cat food also buys milk. Perhaps a bad example. But if they can see that everybody buying cat food is also buying milk, it'd be a good idea to put the two next to each other. You buy the cat food, must get some milk. It helps them to plan the layout of everything in the store. They know how you're paying. They know whether you pay cash or whether you use credit card. That can help them. More and more, you've got these self-checkout places where there's no assistant, but you have to pay by credit card. Well, of course, they need to know what proportion of their customers use credit cards as to whether it's worth doing. But they hold so much data. They know when you're on holiday or ill. Well, they know you haven't been in for 2 weeks. Why haven't they been in for 2 weeks? Are they going to a different shop? Are they on holiday? Are they ill? Well, it can make a difference to the way they target you, the way they advertise to you, the way the emails they send, and so on. Now, the fact that so much information can be stored thanks to computers, we call that big data. That's all. But the storing of masses and masses of information, the more information they have about their customers, the more they can target the customers and hopefully sell more. And you see, there are 3 key words which you're expected to be aware of relating to big data. The 3 V's. One is volume. That's just referring to the amount of data that they store. Talk about made clear, it's huge. The second is velocity. Now, velocity is another word for speed. And of course, thanks to computers, we're able to deal with all this data that they hold quickly. And they need to deal with it quickly. They need to process it instantly. It needs to be fast. And finally, variety. He's just talking about all the different types of information. As I was referring to earlier, do you pay cash or do you pay credit card? Do you have children? Don't you have children? And so on. A huge amount of different bits of information about our customers. Now, though the syllabus only mentioned 3 V's, in general, in case it's mentioned, another V that has recently been added is veracity. And veracity, of course, or perhaps not of course, that's rude. Veracity, we of course want, as far as possible, the data to be accurate. That all this data they're holding about you is only of real benefit to them if it's accurate. So the accuracy. So they need to take into account when they're collecting the data, you know, is it being collected properly and so on. Okay, there we are, jolly good.